So, now we're involved in a war. The first war this country really fought, and in fact, the longest war we ever fought, save the Vietnam War. And all sorts of people were helping us out, particularly early on. Here's a song about an American hero, although the British thought he was a pirate. He started out in England, he's from England, as were a lot of our patriots. And what he did is he took the American war to the English. He foraged up and down the west coast of England on a vessel called the Ranger. And apparently one time he decided they had to raise a little more capital for the Continental Navy, so he sent his men ashore to kidnap an earl, hold him for ransom. Well, that night, it was a terrible night. Big storm, and they brought their boats ashore and almost lost some huge waves, and they're faced with this cliff, a little narrow pathway going up the cliff. They work their way up the cliff, their backs to the rocks with the wind and the rain sweeping and stinging their faces. And they finally get up to the Earl's castle. They knock on his door. Who's there? We are the Continental Navy, and we have come to kidnap the Earl. Oh, well, the Earl isn't home. Well, then we're going to take his silverware. So they got all the silverware, they wrapped them up in linen and wrestled them down that narrow pathway in the cliff and finally get down to the boats. They store the silverware in the boats. They try and launch the boats into the pounding surf. One boat swamps, almost kills a few men. They finally get it righted, bailed out into the surf, pull their way all the way back to the vessel, get the boats back up on the davits, get down into Jones' great cabin. And, oh, sir, the Earl wasn't home. But we got his silverware. Jones takes a long look at the silverware, a longer look at his men, and says, I sent you ashore to kidnap me an earl, not to be a bunch of common thieves and steal his silverware. Take it back. Which they did. You can still see that silverware that John Paul Jones returned on the Isle of St. Mary. Here's a song that apparently, at least it's said, was written by one of John Paul Jones' crew aboard that vessel, the Ranger. It's a gallant Yankee ship that flew the stripes and stars, and the whistling wind through the west and northwest blew through her pitch pine spars. With her starboard tacks aboard, my boys, she hung upon the gale. Autumn night we raised the light on the old head of Kinsale. It was a clear and cloudless night, and the wind blew steady and strong. Well, fairly o'er the sparkling deep, a good ship bowled along. With her foaming seas beneath her bow, the fiery waves she spread. Bending low her bosom in snow, she buried her lee cat head. What looms upon our starboard bow, what hangs upon the breeze? 'Tis time we hauled a good ship abreast in the old Saltese. For by her pondering expressive sail, and by her escorts four, we saw our morning visitor was a British man of war. Up spoke our noble captain, then the shot of heaven has passed. How snug your flowing courses lay your topsails to the mast. Those Englishmen gave three loud hurrahs from the deck of their covered ark. We answered back with a solid broadside from the deck of our patriotic bark. Out booms, the skipper cried, out booms and give her she. And the swiftest keel that was ever launched shot ahead of the British fleet. Amidst a thundering shower of shot, her stunsails hoisted away. Down the North Channel Paul Jones did steer, just at the break of day. One of the best sailing songs ever. If you know anybody that knows about sailing an old vessel, it's absolutely accurate. Well, now we are going to explore some songs that were sung on either side, and a few, actually a lot, that were sung on both sides. After all, we were all sort of Englishmen to begin with. Favorite song, both armies? The drum. The drum was so important, not just for marching and giving you the cadence to march, but also for the signals of what to do in a battle. Because you see, once the weapons were fired the first time with these old black powder things, smoke was so thick you couldn't see anything. So you had to rely on the drum and sometimes the fife, then later on, say in the Civil War, the bugle, to actually tell you where you're going and what is happening. So, the drum. How happy the soldier who lives on his pay, spends half a crown on 6 pence a day. He fears neither justice's warrants nor bonds, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. With a rowdy-ta-rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. With a rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. He cares not a marvendy how the world goes. His king finds his money, his quarters and clothes. He laughs at all sorrow whenever it comes, rattles away to the roll of the drum. With a rowdy-ta-rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. With a rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. The drum is his glory, his joy and delight. It leads him to pleasure as well as to fight. No girl when she hears it, though ever so glum, but packs up her tatters and follows the drum. With a rowdy-ta-rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, he pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. With a rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta-rowdy-ta-ta, pays all his debts to the roll of the drum. Or another song, drinking song, shared by both sides. Actually, to be honest with you, a dirty drinking song. I'll give you one verse of it. To Anacreon in heaven, who sat in full glee, when a few sons of harmony sent a petition, that he their inspirer and patron would be, when the answer arrived from the jolly old Grecian, voice, fiddle, and flute no longer be mute, I'll lend you my name, and inspire you to boot. Likewise I'll instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. Likewise I'll instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. They use that tune actually for a lot of broadsides describing battles and military movements. You recognize it? No? Some of you do. Became the Star-Spangled Banner. So, here's another one. They're great songs, great songs. Well, at least I think they're great songs. Okay, pull out the banjo. Here is a song that I understand folks in Vermont still dance to, called the Bennington Rifle Song. What happened here was Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne, British commander, was coming down Lake Champlain. He was going to cut the American colonies in half. And he liked to travel in style. In fact, I understand he had 3 wagon loads of champagne that he carried with him. He didn't want to let his lifestyle slip in the wilderness. He brought his sisters and his cousins and his aunts and his wife and his mistress. I don't know how he pulled that one off. But at any rate, they started running out of supplies just north of Saratoga. And so Burgoyne sends his Hessian colonel, Baum, due eastward into the Hampshire grants to forage for supplies. Now Baum, you understand, didn't speak English. So he gets into what's now called Vermont, around the town of Bennington, and he meets up with a bunch of scruffy-looking Yankees, and they convince him that they are Tories, loyalists for the king and the cause. And Baum, he gets this wonderful idea. He says, Ach, du lieber, I tell you what, you know the lay of the land here. You know who we can trust. So why don't you just make yourselves our pickets, our guards? And so they became his advanced guards. Now what Baum had actually done was recruit a significant portion of Captain Johnny Stark's mountain boys. So when the battle broke out, well, those fellas just sort of turned around. And we won that battle decisively. Unfortunately, Baum was killed. But one of the reasons that folks figured we won that battle was because we had rifles instead of muskets. You remind me after the song and I'll show you the difference. Rifle song. You know the difference between a rifle and a musket? Well, the difference is you stick your finger down the barrel of a musket, it's smooth. You stick your finger down the barrel of a rifle, it's got grooves in it like a barber's pole. Those are called rifling. Apparently it was actually invented in the late 1600s by a French guy called Reflet. But Americans in English, being what they are, couldn't speak French that well, we call it rifle. Oh, the rifle. Wham, wham, wham. Now, let's keep with theme here. You've got Baum going into Bennington. He didn't get any supplies. And Burgoyne ends up in a place called Saratoga, and that was major victory for the Americans. Major victory. We took all of Burgoyne's army, including the wives and the sisters and the aunts and the champagne. By the way, that was one of his nicknames. One was Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne and the other was Champagne Johnny. Come unto me, ye heroes, and I the truth will tell, concerning many a soldier who for his country fell. Burgoyne, the king's commander, and cursed Tory crew, with Indians and Canadians, they up the Champlain flew. They up the Champlain flew. They up the Champlain flew. With Indians and Canadians, they up the Champlain flew. Before Ticonderoga, full well both night and day, their motions we observed before the bloody fray. Burgoyne sent Bond of Bennington, with Hessians there he went, to murder and to plunder was fully their intent. Aye, was fully their intent. Was fully their intent. To murder and to plunder was fully their intent. The 7th of October they did capitulate. Burgoyne's proud army we did our prisoners make, and vain was their endeavor our men to terrify. Though death was all around us, not one of us would fly. Not one of us would fly. Not one of us would fly. Though death was all around us, not one of us would fly. So here's a health to Arnold and our Commander Gates, to freedom and to Washington, whom every Tory hates. Likewise unto our Congress, God grant him long to reign, our country rights and justice forever to maintain. Forever to maintain. Forever to maintain. Our country rights and justice forever to maintain. By the way, I was singing you the earlier version of that song that was sung pretty much right after the Battle of Saratoga. Here's a health to Arnold and our Commander Gates. If I'd sung it a later version, it would be here's a health to Herkimer and our Commander Gates. Because as you probably know, Arnold, a year or two later, I hate to say it, but became a traitor to the cause. Up until that time, he was really one of our best generals and admirals. He actually won a naval battle on Lake Champlain. The guy was good. When he was actually fighting for the control of Quebec, he was against a fellow, a British general called Carlisle. Carlisle developed such a respect and admiration for Arnold as the opposition that when he did turn traitor and went to England, he was pretty much, he had a little trouble in society, English society, because they looked at him as a traitor, even if they were realizing that he was a traitor for their cause. And the only one who really befriended him was Carlisle. Carlisle. So here's a health to Arnold and our Commander Gates. Maybe you didn't know either that Arnold was actually under arrest because a lot of the officers were jealous of him, including Gates. Soldiers referred to Gates as Granny Gates. And so when the battle started, Arnold basically broke out and led the charge that turned the tide of Saratoga and made it possible for the French to join our cause as allies and really turn the whole tide of the war that resulted in Yorktown and the surrender of Cornwallis and the establishment of the United States of America. You go to that Battle of Saratoga now, you see statues and monuments all over the place. There's one spot that all there is a stone carving of a boot without a name on it. And that was to Arnold, the real hero of Saratoga. Well, let's go back to sea again. Well, land and sea. Sir Peter Parker, a highly decorated British admiral, was in the process of taking Charleston. There's a huge amount of exchange of cannon fire. He didn't make it. In fact, he had to retreat. But there was an incident that happened that the Yankees couldn't let go by without being sung. Apparently, the Yankees gave such a defense with their cannon that a ball broke through the bulwark of Sir Peter Parker's vessel, the Bristol, and came so close to Peter Parker that it tore off his breeches and skidded him along the deck on his bare bottom, which could be a very splintery affair. My lords, with your leave, account I will give, which deserves to be written in meter, how the rebels and I have been pretty nigh, faith almost too nigh for Sir Peter. Right dun-dun-dee, hey, right dun-dun-dee, oh, faith almost too nigh for Sir Peter. With labor and toil unto Sullivan's Isle, I sailed swift as Falstaff or pistol. But the Yankees got rotten, I couldn't get at 'em, they most terribly mauled my poor Bristol. Right dun-dun-dee, hey, right dun-dun-dee, ho, most terribly mauled my poor Bristol. Devil take them, their shot came swift and so hot, and the cowardly dogs stood so stiff, sir, that I put ship about and was glad to get out, or they wouldn't have left me a skiff, sir. Right dun-dun-dee, hey, right dun-dun-dee, ho, they wouldn't have left me a skiff, sir. Now Clinton by land did quietly stand, while my guns made a terrible rumpus. But my pride took a fall when a well-aimed ball propelled me along on my bumpus. Right dun-dun-dee, right dun-dun-dee, ho, propelled me along on my bumpus. Sir Peter Parker. So let's do a song from the British. Favorite song. This was sung by the British soldiers all over the American continent, particularly when they established their headquarters on Staten Island. Beautiful thing. At least I think so. You'll notice the second verse. It's absolutely contemporary to the American Revolution because this young fellow, Jamie, is going over to quell the proud rebels. So the English, at least the English common folk, had a deep affinity for the Americans, the proud rebels, the banks of the Dee. 'Twas summer and softly the breezes were blowing, sweetly the wood pigeon cooed from the tree. At the foot of a hill where the river was flowing, I sat myself down on the banks of the Dee. Flow on, lovely Dee, flow on, thou sweet river, thy banks' purest stream shall be dear to me ever. For there I first gained the affection and favor of Jamie, the glory, the pride of the Dee. But now he's gone from me and left me thus mourning, to quell the proud rebels, for valiant is he. But there's no hope of his speedy returning, to wander again on the banks of the Dee. He's gone, hapless youth, o'er the rude roaring billows, the bravest, the kindest of all our fine fellows, and left me to mourn mongst these once loved willows, the loneliest lass on the banks of the Dee. But time and my prayers may perhaps yet restore him, blessed peace may return my dear lover to me. And when he returns with such care I'll watch o'er him, he never shall leave the sweet banks of the Dee. The Dee will then flow all its beauty displaying, the lambs on its banks will again their sing playing, whilst I and my Jamie am carelessly straying, and tasting again all the sweets of the Dee. Pretty song, isn't it? But there's another song, a haunting song. It's called Katie Cruel. And according to some memoirs and some letters, this was sung quite a bit with our army, particularly on those long marches, often in the depths of winter, through the forest of New Jersey. See, as fate would have it, when we were fighting that revolution of ours, the temperatures were extreme, very extreme, below zero many times, and up hovering even above 100 degrees in the summer. And yet still, they marched. Didn't have trains back then. You would march hundreds and hundreds of miles. I'm going to also mix into this a song, a lament from the Hudson River Valley. Katie Cruel. Check out the chorus. Oh, that I were where I would be, then would I be where I am not, but I am where I must be. Where I'd be, I cannot. Little day, oh, the little day. Through the woods I'll go, through the bog and mire, straight way down the road till I come to my desire. Little day, oh, the little day. When first I came to town, they called me the Roving Jewel. Now they've changed their tune, they call me Katie Cruel. Little day, oh, the little day. Oh, that I were where I would be, then would I be where I am not, but I am where I must be. Where I'd be, I cannot. Oh, little day, oh, the little day. Oh, little day, oh, the little day. Here I sit on Buttermilk Hill. Who could blame me, cry my fill? And every tear would turn a mill. Oh, Johnny has gone for a soldier. Me, oh my, I love him so. Broke my heart to see him go. And only death would cure my woe. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Eyes as bright as coal, lips as red as cherries, and 'tis her delight to make the young folks merry. Little day, oh, the little day. Oh, that I were where I would be, then would I be where I am not, but I am where I must be.